everybody, and welcome to NFL Live. It's a holiday weekend. We have a great Friday show for you today. So Saquon Barkley, did you hear this? He thinks last year's Eagles team is top 5 all time. Our crew has some thoughts on that. Also, as you know, it's yearbook season, so our friend Bill Barnwell, he's dishing out some superlatives. Find out who received what this offseason. Plus, Derrick Henry. Hey, this man got paid this week. Sits down with King Henry to find out all about his role in the resurgence of the running back position. We have Mina Kimes with us. We have Kevin Clark with me here in studio. And Bill Barnwell, now he's been gone for a while because he and his wife just welcomed their first child. Graham, congratulations, Bill. You getting any sleep? I know everybody asks that with new parents.
More sleep than I get during a typical NFL season. So a little worse than your typical off season, but I'll take it so far.
Okay, I guess that bar isn't very high then. All right, meanwhile, the Lions are sleeping a lot better now that Jayden Hutchinson has been cleared to return.
Hey.
The defense took a big hit after Hutchinson went down in Week 6 of last season. In their first 5 games, they ranked top 7 in pass rush win rate. Say that 3 times fast. Sacks per game and opponents' yards per dropback. Then, without Hutch, they ranked in the bottom 6 in every single one of those categories. Here he is yesterday on whether he has some added motivation now returning from injury.
I would say there's motivation not from it getting taken away, but me putting that on tape, and I had a lot of growth in those first 5 games to where I feel like you evolve as a player, and things were clicking at a high level, and I had a lot of thoughts at the time that were like, if I'm thinking about a golf swing, you have the good swing thoughts going on. Like, that's kind of pass rush, and I have these good pass rush thoughts, good things going on, and I feel like that's just going to carry over, and I'm going to continue to build on that.
Now, I really love the analogy to swing thoughts in golf. What are your expectations for that defense with him back?
Well, certainly improved when he's back in the lineup for obvious reasons, one of the best pass rushers in football. I thought that they would add another pass rusher to complement him, though, and I was a little bit surprised. I think that was the expectation a lot of folks had of Detroit. But I think that the way they approached their roster was to help the pass rush in other ways. So starting here, the Lions' defense was actually better versus the pass than versus the run last year in just about every metric: DVOA, success rate, EPA per play. So in the first round, they go out, they get a big run-stuffing defensive tackle, Tyleik Williams. I think the hope is they'll be in more 3rd and longs. And then they added to the pass defense the secondary. You add DJ Reed in free agency, Avonte Maddox, Terrion Arnold is a rookie last year. Hopefully he takes another step, and as Registraw gets healthy. So I think their thinking is, if our secondary plays better and our run defense is better, we can help the pass rush and Jayden Hutchinson without adding another pass rusher.
First of all, Mina, I'm not going to talk about my golf swing because this only is an hour show, and I could talk about that for about 10 hours. So I'll just move on very quickly here. Jayden Hutchinson, at the time he got hurt after 4.5 games, had 45 pressures last year. It took TJ Watt 16 weeks to get 45 pressures. This is one of the most heartbreaking injuries we've seen in a long time. I would put it up there with Aaron Rodgers 2 years ago as one of the most devastating for a fan base because of what it means. It robbed us of one of the best NFC title games we've ever seen when you think about the Lions roster and the Eagles roster. But I think once he gets back and he's ready to rock, he is going to change this defense like he did last year. I love this Lions team. I think there are 2 rosters that are clearly above everybody else in the NFC. I would put the Rams a cut below. There's some projection there with some of their young guys, but the Lions are ready to win now in the same way that the Eagles are. So 24 guys on IR. If there's any health regression towards the mean, they're going to have a big year.
Kevin had to bring up regression towards the mean, knowing I was coming up next. Kevin's absolutely correct. Jayden Hutchinson was playing at a Defensive Player of the Year level last year, and the Lions had to change the way they played once he and Marcus Davenport went out. They changed their blitz rate. Aaron Glenn, kind of a guy who usually went into the blitz, didn't have to early in the year. They were 14th in blitz rate before the injury. Afterwards, they were 1st in the NFL in blitz rate. They had to send extra guys because they didn't have the pieces up front. And some weeks that worked out great, but we saw in the loss to the Bills, and especially that season-ending loss to the Commanders, when the blitz wasn't getting home, it was a disaster. They allowed 40 or more points in both those games. And so with Hutchinson now back, with Kelvin Shepherd taking over, over for Aaron Glenn as defensive coordinator. Real questions about what they do on defense. Do they continue to lean into the blitz? Are they a top 5 blitz team? Or do you trust that front four, trust the additions made this offseason that Mina mentioned, and lean into rushing 4, dropping 7 into coverage, being more conservative, but maybe more consistent for the Lions on a week-to-week basis on defense?
Yeah, and I think, Bill, that when you talk about the blitzing, how much they had to, and whether or not they can rush with 4, it really does tie back to the run defense quietly being an issue. And this was an issue, by the way, throughout the season, even before Jayden Hutchinson got injured. Because if they can get into more 3rd and longs with the help of that run defense, then it'll be easier for those 4 to rush the passer. You know, they still don't have that guy opposite Jayden Hutchinson, another opposite pass rusher who's really emerged. Josh Pascal is still in the lineup. You mentioned Davenport, who was last year, got injured. But I think situationally they can help whoever it is opposite Jayden Hutchinson by putting them in just better spots in 3rd and longs.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, Mina, Hutchinson did, the Lions in sacks last season, and he only played 5 games all year. All right. Meanwhile, another premier defensive player, the Bengals' Trey Hendrickson, still does not have a new deal. He's accounted for 39% of the Bengals sacks over the last 3 seasons. That's the most in the NFL. The next 2 players on that list, Myles Garrett and Max Crosby, and as you know, both those guys have signed extensions. Their average salaries, $40 million and $35.5 million, respectively. Bengals star quarterback Joe Burrow has found himself now advocating for yet another teammate to get paid.
I think he's doing what he thinks is best for his career, and I support him in that. You know, Trey's a smart guy, just like anybody. You know, I'm sure there's things that he'd like to have back, but he's very well thought out in his process, and he's a guy that deserves to get paid and get paid what he wants and what the market is. So, you know, like I said, we'll see what happens with that. But, you know, I love Trey and hope he's with us.
I mean, Kevin, what do you make of Burrow having to publicly ask for a teammate to get paid, just like he did for Higgins and Chase?
Yeah, I'm going to talk to Joe Burrow directly here. Kids at home, earmuffs, don't listen to this. Bullying works, okay? Bullying is an effective tactic in this situation. The Bengals have been bullied into operating with some players like they haven't before. I think in a different era, they would not have signed T. Higgins to the deal that they did. Heck, they may not even sign Joe Burrow if he wasn't as special as he was. And so for me, I look at this team right now and I see Trey Hendrickson, top 5 since he got there in sacks, pressure rate, pressures. And I'm seeing a guy that any other team that's competing in the AFC would have locked up a couple of years ago. I look at the AFC and the contenders with those quarterbacks, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. Every other front office and ownership is more committed to winning. So Joe Burrow is using press conferences and publicity as a means to get what he wants. I love it. It's the only way they're going to change. Bullying works here.
Joe Burrow gets Trey Hendrickson paid. He may have to start taking a cut from